Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing the FanDuel DFS preview for this evening. And what I'm going to do with this slate is I am going to go position by position, but I'm going to focus in on trying to identify the differences between kind of the chalky plays and the pivot plays, and trying to show you guys how to, construct lineups with some pivots, but not necessarily all of them, because while on the one hand, you don't want to make a lineup with all the quote unquote best plays if they're all going to be chalky, you also don't want to give up too much, projection integrity or too much in the way of projections at every position in your lineup just for the sake of being contrarian. What you want to do is hopefully get a good blend of good chalk plus kind of okay pivots, right? And that's usually the best way to approach even the biggest field GPPs. Now, obviously, the bigger the field, the more you have to pivot, okay? But sometimes you just have to kind of take what the slate gives you. So as we go through this, as we go through these positions, go through these plays, that's going to be the theme of what we're doing, at least, is to see where we can be different and where we just kind of are spinning our wheels and are kind of fighting a losing battle in trying to be different. Okay? So what I'm going to be doing at each position is identifying kind of the chalk good plays, and then also trying to identify the kind of okay plays, which are just going to be lower owned that probably make for decent pivots. So where are we going to start? We'll start at the point guard position where, a good amount of the ownership is going to go to kind of a handful of players. And the two highest owned are probably going to be Luka and maybe Beverly. And for good reason. I mean, they both look to be like really good values here. Luka, especially now without Porzingis, is going to project to have to be a good play. And he's going to be really highly owned. And where there's position scarcity in FanDuel, he's going to get even more ownership than he otherwise would. Does he rate to be the best play? Now, again, best is kind of relative, I think he rates to be a good play. And actually at the point guard position, I think that he rates to be the best play. So maybe this is not exactly the position that you want to pivot. In other words, maybe pivoting off Luka might be asking for trouble. Because when I look down and what I see is I don't see anybody that's that close to him that's going to be that low owned that I might want to do it. Like the closest thing I can come to is maybe someone like Trey, right? So what we're going to try to do is if I put Trey along with Luka, I mean, that's already asking for trouble, right? Because you're probably going to want to play Harden, but maybe not. But Trey projects to be kind of a decent value, and he projects to be, significantly lower owned than Luka. I'm looking at about, maybe about 15%. So what you could do is one of two things. You could replace Luka with Trey, and that is certainly one way to go, and that's really getting some leverage. Or you could play Trey alongside of Luka. Now, not that these are the only plays, but that's just kind of one way that you can go to get your leverage. The next couple of guys on the list are not that big of a deal. Like Eric Bledsoe looks to be a pretty decent play. But you know what? He's garnering some ownership too, maybe 20% or so. And when I scroll down the list of these point guards that rate to be good plays, their ownerships are really reflecting them, like Beverly, Bledsoe, even Colin Sexton. All right, so if you want somebody kind of really off the board, I don't want to say off the board, okay, because everybody's on the board in kind of a shortest slate. But to show you what I'm trying to accomplish here, somebody who projects very similar to these guys with respect to value, who we're going to need to pivot off of some chalkier, cheaper value later, is perhaps someone like Austin Rivers. Okay, like when I look at projections and the values and stuff like that, he projects to be very similar to some of these other point guards, just from a value perspective. And considering the fact that you're going to probably want to get value on the slate, and there's probably going to be chalky value kind of elsewhere. Maybe this is a decent idea. Like PJ Tucker is going to be pretty highly owned at 3,900, I think, power forward. So if we can find a pivot off of him in that same game who's going to be much lower owned, I think that this is one way to go. So depending on how reckless, I don't want to say reckless, but how off the wall you want to be, you could start a lineup with, say, Luka and Rivers. So what you're getting is kind of a chalky start, but you're automatically getting low ownership with the next position, okay? And I know you don't have to build every lineup one by one like this, but when you build even 15 or 20, this is the kind of mix that you want, a mix of chalk with some kind of decently leveraged pivots. So what else at the point guard position can I tell you? And I went over Luka, good play. Trey, probably good play. Beverly, Bledsoe, Sexton. And after that, that's really the end of the point guards as far as I'm concerned. If you want to take a flyer with Tyler Johnson, maybe, all the way down to 3,500, that's another way you can go. If you don't believe that Elie Okobo is going to be the next big thing over there with the Rubio injury. And he is another guy, actually. So if you didn't want to go Rivers, you want to take a shot at maybe Tyler Johnson, that's another thing you could do. So if you pair Luka with Rivers or Luka with Tyler Johnson at the power forward position, the point guard position, you're already starting off in kind of wild territory. So at the shooting guard position, the unfortunate reality is that Harden, he's projecting to be about 50% owned. I actually think it's going to be a lot more, just because with no Westbrook, he's projecting through the roof, and he projects to be so much a better value than anybody else at this position that you're giving up a huge amount of opportunity cost by not having him. So I really believe that in the real mathematical sense, he should be more than 50% owned, and maybe he won't be, but it doesn't really matter. In other words, even if he were 60, 70% owned, as long as we can differentiate ourselves elsewhere, as long as we can find a good mix of non-chalk along with him, certainly make this work. But again, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. When you put this chalk stuff in your lineup, like you put Luka in, you put Harden in, you have to know that you're going to have to find room to deviate elsewhere. The two shooting guards that you can go to that have a combination of lower ownership and and a decent projection. Actually, I'm going to make you wait. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Let me just go down kind of the chalkier plays. A chalk play at FanDuel specifically is going to be Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter rates to be, a really, really good value at 4,800. So he is going to be about 20, 25% owned, especially on a slate like this when people are going to want to do what I'm doing, is play Harden, maybe play Doncic or something like that. So they are going to be looking for these value plays, and Huerter is going to be rating as a very, very strong play. And the other one that I alluded to earlier was Elie Okobo. With Rubio out, he's projecting to be a very, kind of a premium value on the slate. And he is projected to be, as a result, 24% owned or 25% owned. So what I'm looking for is maybe a way to avoid all of that, all right, and go somewhere else. I don't know if I can actually make this work quite yet, but a guy who projects to be a good value and is not going to get a lot of ownership at all is paying up for Donovan Mitchell. Okay. I don't know if it's game time decision illness or whatever. We'll take a look at this real quick. Let's see. Probable to play. It's good enough for me. So I think while most people are going to be trying to pair Harden with a Huerter or an Okobo, you can deviate from that by going to paying up for Donovan Mitchell. The other one that I will bring up, let me pull this up really quickly. Wow, there are two other guys that are interesting, totally different levels. One thing you could do is pay up even more for Devin Booker. Devin Booker, for whatever reason, is projected to be less than 10% owned. And I think I know why, because again, with people wanting to play Harden and Doncic, for example, people are going to be really trying to spend down elsewhere. So if you can get away with paying up, again, this depends how the rest of these positions kind of work out for you. For Booker, I mean, you're going to get some leverage on all the other, on a lot of people. Let's put it that way. Now, again, you're going to have to find stuff in the later positions that make this all work because kind of running out of money here, but we'll see what happens. And the final shooting guard that I want to talk about that, again, this is a little bit kind of off the board, but if you want to pivot off of these Akobos and these Herders or whatever it is, if you want, you could maybe do something like Delon Wright. Okay? Again, not the sexiest play in the world, you know, especially when you compare him to a Kobo who's probably going to be starting against the Atlanta matchup. And you got Delon Wright having to fight for usage with Luka Doncic, who only gives up usage whenever he feels like it. However, you know, he is projecting to be okay, and at kind of ownership is he going to have? I mean, it doesn't take a lot to figure out that he's not going to be highly owned because it was hard enough for me to even make the case for him. Yeah, he's looking to be under 10% also. So, I mean, if you could want to play someone like Delon Wright, you know, that's a less aggressive way. I would say less aggressive, but that doesn't use up as much salary. And you're still pivoting. I mean, you're still getting leverage on some of these guys. Let's for now put Booker in, just in case we can get that done. I don't know if we can, but let's just say we can get that done. All right, so moving on to the small forward position. The small forward position becomes a little fishy, okay? Because the highest owned guy, it looks to be pretty close between guys like Kelly Oubre, who's going to benefit from Rubio being out. Alec Burks is going to get some ownership. Giannis, Michael Bridges, also going to benefit from Rubio being out. These guys are projected to be all over 20% or so. And as far as their projections and what kind of value they are, Giannis projects to be much better than all of them. In other words, it would really make Giannis a priority over guys like Oubre and Bridges and Burks. The reason I mention that is there are guys that are close to those other guys like Burks and Bridges that make for decent kind of pivots, okay? And I'm going to get to those in a second. Just for the hell of it, let's put Giannis in here. Let's go back and let's put in Giannis. And let's, just because he is projected to be the best value out here, so let's just put him on there by a lot. We can get him in, great. So, again, we have to zig and zag over here, so we have to go back to Delon Wright. Now, the other small forward that I wanted to bring up that I think projects, not a question whether I like or not, there are two guys that actually project to be pretty decent that are, you know, not going to be as good as Bridges or Burks or House or Eric Gordon or even, but at least they're going to be close, and they're going to be much lower owned. It's going to be DeAndre Hunter, perhaps. DeAndre Hunter. Or another guy that can fit this mold is going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, you already see that if we go this route, we're taking three guys from the Mavericks. But what you're going to have is Luka, who's going to be chalky with these two other guys who are going to gather no ownership. So this is definitely a type of approach which not that many people are going to do, because I think that if people do try to jam in all three of these guys, they are going to probably want the safety of the chalkier value guys, okay, like the Akobos and things like that. So, and the PJ Tuckers. But we're not allowed to do that because we are getting too chalky in these stud spots. So we have to find a way to pivot elsewhere. So, again, I'm not saying you have to play this way, right? You don't have to play these three studs like this. You can go back to something like Devin Booker here in the shooting guard position. And then you could then, if you wanted to, you could go, for example, if you wanted to fade Giannis, you could go DeAndre Hunter over here and Booker over here, and then you see what you have going on. Now you have kind of a 1v1, Booker versus DeAndre Hunter in the same game, right? Or, like I said, if you wanted to pivot from Luka down to Trae Young, You could certainly do that. And then you can get Trae Young with Hunter and Booker all in the same game, right? But you find these kind of pivots which kind of make sense in a vacuum, and then you can kind of pair them with one another depending on the correlation that you're looking to obtain. Let's go on now to power forward. And let's take a look at ownership here. So as I said, there's ownership at the top, and then there's ownership at value. The ownership at the top is all going to Kawhi. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get him into this lineup. And then you have mid-range guy who's going to be getting some ownership, who's going to be Draymond Green. And then the next two guys who kind of alluded to are going to be Amari Spellman and or PJ Tucker. Okay. And this is where, you know, the quote unquote best plays might come from, right? When I look, let's just confirm that when I look at the projections here. Yeah, Spellman, Green, Tucker. Okay, they all look pretty good if you want to know the truth. But if you want to kind of pivot away a little bit, you want to get a little funny, there is a guy just that I'm looking at. There are two guys. Well, one guy you're going to have to pay up for a little bit. The other guy you can pay down for. So let's go over both of them. One guy is going to be Julius Randle. He projects to be a little worse from a value perspective than these guys, I have to say. Is 10 going to be maybe about 10% though? Kind of would want him a little less owned, if you want to know the truth, than that. And then what you could do, again, if you wanted to, you can go back to the Giannis build, because if you want to play Randle and pair him with Giannis, that certainly makes a lot of sense. So the other guy I wanted to mention, which again is a fair warning, is not as good of a play as, say, Spellman or Green or Tucker or anybody like this, even considering price, but he's close enough that given his ownership, he's a good pivot to kind of think about, and that's going to be Jared Allen. I mean, on a slate like this, I really don't know how many people are going to go here. You know, they're going to really try to get either Spellman or Draymond or PJ Tucker, most likely, in their lineups, which certainly makes sense. But if you keep, you know, Jared Allen on as a pivot, that could make, you know, a decent amount of sense. Like, again, you don't have to go full on fade either. You could play both. In a situation like this, you could play both Tucker and Jared Allen, because you're getting enough differentiation elsewhere. But what I want to do, let's get a little pure. Let's not play Tucker and Rivers, okay? Let's take the other guy. Let's put Spellman in. If you have to take one kind of chalky guy, let's put Spellman in maybe. So even you look at a lineup like this, you know, you get a little bit of chalk, Doncic and Harden. This one actually is probably a little bit too contrarian if you think about it. You know, this only has two guys that I would consider, actually 2.5. So this one has three players that are chalky. It has Doncic, Harden, and Spellman. The other guys, at least based on the ownership I'm looking at, are kind of off the board. So for me, this is kind of a neat little approach. Now, this doesn't have exactly the correlation I always want, but hey, you know what? It's got a Dallas and a Golden State guy in it. It's got a DeAndre Hunter and a Phoenix and Atlanta guy in there. Makes sense. It's got Luka in here also, part of that Dallas Golden State thing. What you could do, I mean, if you wanted to, we can go back to a play I kind of glossed over. I don't even know if I mentioned it. But another way you could go at shooting guard, if you didn't want to go Devin Booker, is similarly owned in similar situation is D'Angelo Russell, right? So what you could do is if you wanted to go with Luka, you could stack him with D'Angelo Russell, okay? Or, again, if you wanted to do the Booker route, you could go Booker and then down to Trae Young, right? So, again, these are the ways that to use your plays that you know are good individually, and make sure that you have the best correlated lineup you can come up with. Now, wouldn't it be awesome? I mean, life is not this easy, but if there were a center that fit exactly what I wanted to do with exactly this price, of course, it's never that easy. So let's take a look at the center position. I think the center position, unfortunately, is pretty efficient. And when I say that, I mean it looks like the best plays are the ones that are getting the highest ownerships, and it's looking like that's going to be Capella, Harrell, and Ayton. Capella, Harrell, and Ayton. They project to be the best values, and with respect to ownership, hold on, they project to be the highest owned. With respect to ownership, they have a pretty decent edge over everybody else, if you want to know the truth, in terms of value. That Ayton, Capella, Harrell, they're just almost a dead tie. I wouldn't want to really rank one over the other, okay? If you really, really wanted to be contrarian, you can pay all the way up. Oh, boy, if you did this. If you wanted to pay all the way up for Gobert at 9,200 or 9,000, that seems like, that's definitely a semi-psycho type move here. But you could certainly do it, and you could certainly get away with it, right? You just have to make some concessions elsewhere. Like if you went and you did this, if you went this off the board, you don't even have to. You could even go down and chalk out and play Kevin Huerter in this spot. I mean, you're at a point now where you don't have to worry about ownership of any of these other guys at all. I mean, you might even, looking at point guard, for example, you might try to do something where you get up to kind of a better guy than Austin Rivers in this type of lineup. I mean, you could get up to, you can't quite get there, but you could maybe go up to Patrick Beverley if you make a concession elsewhere, right? Boy, this is really asking for trouble. I mean, you play Jarrett Allen. I mean, you play Gobert. Never mind, you're playing the same lineup with Jarrett Allen. I probably don't know if I would be that cavalier about this. I think I would go with Harrell. Maybe come back to D'Angelo Russell, something like that. Right? Now, again, this leaves 800 on the table, but whatever. So you can upgrade a little bit and downgrade a little bit. But you see where I'm headed here, right? You have to, and this is what I'm doing. And this is what I'm doing tonight. This is what I do pretty much every night. Is kind of have my list of players that I consider good chalk, and then I have my list of players that I consider kind of lower owned, not as great, and if they're lower owned, not as great, and I think they're kind of upside type guys, right? And I also think that they might have good correlation with some of these other guys in my lineup, then I make sure to kind of throw those in. I see the only problem with with Harrell, for example, is that he really doesn't fly with a lot of the other guys in my lineup. So, for example, maybe I would try to do something with Ayton instead, okay? So at least Ayton's going to go with DeAndre Hunter, and then we could make some adjustment elsewhere, okay? Like who's the other small forward? Oh, we had both these guys being small forwards, being decent values, decent pivots or whatever. So you can kind of mess around with this. Or you can go back, you can be a little chalkier here. You can go back to, Lou Williams, just kind of okay. But you see what I'm accomplishing here. You're putting a mix together of good chalk with plays that might make you a little bit uncomfortable, but they're low enough owned and they're close enough to the rest of the rest of the guys that it makes sense. Now let's just do one more build, just for the hell of it. Okay, let's clear the field, and what we're going to do now is we're going to fade Harden. Okay, and The other thing we're going to do, just for the hell of it, is we're going to fade Luka. And the reason why I want to do that is just to see what it is required to get that done. How do you replace those points? And hopefully the ownership edge you get by fading two really high, highly projected and highly owned players will make up for that. So who are the guys that we spoke about already that can fill those positions? So let's go back to Trae Young again. Okay. And let's go back to he's going to replace Luka. Now let's go back to the shooting guard position. Who did we talk about? We talked about Booker. We talked about D'Angelo Russell. We talked about Donovan Mitchell, right? Well, the natural one that I would 100% think would be a priority given this particular lineup would be Booker because he correlates well with Trae Young, right? So now if we were going to do that, okay, what we could do is we could go to Giannis, right? And then if we did that, we could end up filling in like the rest of these guys with all these value guys that we spoke about, right? So, for example, who did we talk about in the point guard position? Well, Beverly was chalky. Sexton was chalky. We spoke about Rivers as a pivot, but I don't think that if you're going to fade Luka and Harden, you need that big of a pivot. So here, you could be safe. I don't want to say safe in the wrong way, but you could go with somebody like Bledsoe or Patrick Beverly or something like that, right? Then at the shooting guard position, because we went kind of off the board and are fading Luka and them, now you can go ahead and chalk out with a Kobo, okay, or with Herter at the other shooting guard position. Let's put in a Kobo, for example, okay. And if you use Giannis, who else can use it at small forward? You could use, Oubre, and then now we're stacking a little bit. You want to try that? Are we going to be able to get away with that? Are we going to be able to afford all this? Probably not. And now we can go back to power forward, and now I don't have to worry about ownership, right? Because we're already fading Harden. We're already fading Luka. So now let's go ahead. Let's just jam in this PJ Tucker chalk, which is probably good chalk, but I just don't 100% need it. And then I wonder if you could do this. There's no way you could do this, right? I was going to say that you could play somebody like Draymond. No, you're not going to be able to afford this, right? There's not a big chalk. There's not a big cheap center. But let's go backwards. Let's reverse engineer this. Let's go back to center and see who looks good. You know what? There is. There's a $4,200 center that projects to be a good value. All right. And, not the greatest idea in the world, not the sexiest play in the world, but you can go to Zubac, for example. So what is this? Well, what this is a no Harden, no Luka lineup, which gives you a game stack with Trae and Booker and a Kobo and Oubre, right? And then it just has some kind of, decent one-offs here. This has got Beverly and Zubac are in the same game, but you don't need too much out of them, right? We're looking to get our win this tournament with the Trae and the Booker and the Giannis and the Oubre. We could try to win the tournament with Draymond. I'm not winning the tournament with Tucker, but he's going to hold my lineup together. Zubac's going to hold my lineup together. And I'm not really expecting to win the tournament with the Chalky or Kobo either, right? He's going to just hold my lineup together, which is fine, okay, because the rest of these guys are going to be decently low enough owned where I can win the tournament just with those guys if these other value guys just kind of hold their own. So this is certainly a totally different build that you can make. And I would be very, very happy with something like that. Okay, just a matter of transparency. Let's do this. Let's put a second one of these in. Then what we're going to do is we're going to edit this one. Again, so you see what the other approach looked like again. So again, that was the fade-in. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we got time. So what this is going to do is this is going to chalk out on those studs once again. So this is going to go Luka over here. This is going to go Harden over here. Well, unfortunately, we can't go chalky pretty much anywhere else anymore. So what we're going to do is, what did we say? We're going to go back to Austin Rivers. And let's not even do Booker. Let's do completely unique type things. So let's do this one. Let's do the Mitchell with Jared Allen. Remember that one? Remember that play? Jared Allen. And then what you could do is go back to these pivots, these Hardaways and DeAndre Hunter. And what did we say? You want to put one chalk A, you want to put Tucker in here? I don't need to do that. Let's put in DeAndre Ayton, we talked about before. And let's not necessarily play him. I just don't want to play two people from, I don't want to have any duplication. This is fine. Okay. So this would be a way to play all the studs, all right? Not all the studs. This would be a way to play both Luka and Harden. So let's save this one. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough money to put another one in the slam. But what you can do is this. Well, since what we're definitely going to do is we're going to enter these in the 7. Let's put 2 of them in the 7. And then we'll put 2 of these in the 7. And just to kind of show, let's go to incoming. You have any money left to put in? You want to empty the clip? All right, we're going to empty the clip. And then we're going to do this one. Okay. I just want to show you what a build might look like if you faded all of the studs. And what that would look like. And what type of ownership you would need to make that work. Like, is this going to be way too crazy to do that? So what are we doing here? So now we're doing no Harden, no Giannis, and no Luka. All right? Let's see what we can do. Let's put in Trey. Let's put in, who else do we talk about? You can go to Beverly, Sexton. There's no real good spend up there. So let's go back to someone to kind of hold down the fort. What do you want, Bledsoe or Beverly? They're both kind of the same. Eeny, meeny, miny. You know, let's make it harder on ourselves. Let's do the more expensive one. Let's put in Bledsoe. Now, who are these middle of the road guys that we're going to need? Not middle of the road. These, you know, non-studs that we're going to need points from. Well, let's put in Mitchell. We talked about him. And we could go either Booker or Russell. No, interchangeable really, but let's put in Russell. Now, small forward, only rule is not allowed to play Giannis, right? So who are the guys we spoke about? We spoke about Oubre. DeAndre Hunter would be kind of a pivot, but we already don't need pivots. We just need kind of good plays here. You could do Mikal Bridges. You haven't used him in any lineups yet. Try that. Now, if you go to Oubre, do you have to play Booker? Probably not. But you have Trey, so I do want to put at least one Phoenix guy in here. You know what? This is going to end up being probably just going to end up being a Phoenix-Atlanta stack, isn't it? So let's just – we know it's going to happen, so let's put him in. We know it's coming, right? We know this is going to be the case. So this is my middling build, okay? All 5 of these guys, you know, I really, at least 4 of these guys really need to smash, which is fine by me. I'll take my chance. These are some pretty good plays here. What else in small forward can we do? You can go back to DeAndre Hunter if you want to try that. You can go Alec Burks. You haven't played him yet. He looks pretty good. And what you could do if you want is you can make this kind of a stack this game a little bit. Stack this side of it. We're not playing Luka, so let's just play Burks and Green on the other side. That'll work. Now, if you wanted to, you can go back and play Spellman. Ooh, or, oh, I don't know if we can do this. Yeah, I don't think I want to go up to John Collins. Playing Trey and John Collins, it's a lot. That's a lot of salary. Okay, so I think it's time to just eat it. All right. Do we have to eat it? Do I have to do this? Yeah, I think you got to eat the Tucker here, so to speak. And then who can you play at center? Let me see. Well, I'd like to get up to Harrell somehow. Right? I'd like to get up to a middling, a little more balanced Harrell. So let me put him in. Let me put in Harrell and see where we have to fade away here. Would we rather give up money for Burks or give up Green? Well, what can you get? Well, you get a small forward. You could build this Phoenix stack a little more. So let's do that. Let's put in Bridges. So this could be fun. So again, these are just ideas. These are just examples, right? You don't have to jam Harden in. But if you did jam Harden in, that's fine. Just make sure that the rest of your lineup is very low owned. Okay? That's it. I hope this was instructive. And, I hope this was late enough in the day where I accounted for at least a decent amount of the news without, being too late for you guys to do anything about it. I mean, you still got plenty of time. But again, this would be my, approach to how I'm doing these FanDuel lineups. And I'm not doing any more than these lineups. I mean, I might change these, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 8 lineups. I'm going to do 3 entries in the Slam and then 3, entries in the lottery or whatever it is, 4 entries in the lottery. We'll see what happens. All right, that's it. I will catch up to you guys later.